Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. The DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day is the Grade 1 Delaware Handicap featuring multiple Eclipse champion Songbird. Matt Bernier and I will take a look at the Delaware Handicap as well as a couple of graded stakes races for 3-year-olds. The Indiana Derby featuring IRAP, the Los Alamitos Derby featuring West Coast. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick, Belmont race number 3, the Rockville Centre Stakes for 2-year-old New York breds. JK is going to have his play of the day. Peter Thomas Fornatell is going to talk about the latest in the world of handicapping tournaments in this edition of Tournament Talk, and we'll also have our best bets for the Saturday cards. Let's break Out of the Gate. Let's kick off the show with our Horse Watch segment. Matt Bernier and I are going to give you 2 horses that really caught our eye over the last week to put in your DRF Horse Watch on DRF.com. One of Matt's earlier Horse Watches is running on Friday in the race of the day at Woodbine, so keep an eye out for that one. You like a 2-year-old from last week, though.
Well, it's that time of year, isn't it, Dan? 2-year-olds getting ready for Del Mar, getting ready for Saratoga. Southern California, Los Alamitos last week was their opening week, and this is their closing week of their entire meeting. But Bob Baffert, no surprise, debuted what looks to be a pretty good 2-year-old. This horse's name is Zulfikar. We're going to take a look at his career debut. He earns a decent enough fig. He's there in the yellow and the blue. We've seen these silks familiar in the past, but once this horse is kind of put down, he goes on with it and he opens up. He's going to win by 3 3/4 lengths. He earns an 82 Beyer speed figure, a 105 Timeform US rating. He doesn't have a heck of a lot pedigree-wise to speak of on the bottom, but he's by Bodemeister. We know Bodemeister sired Always Dreaming, who won the Kentucky Derby this year, but clearly the connections thought highly of him. Again, they paid $750,000 for him, and it sounds like the best pal is next for Del Mar. That's, I believe, the 3rd week in August. So we've got a little bit of time, but this is looks to be a promising one for Baffert.
That was an eye-catching debut. I just love the way he moved away from those horses smoothly and professionally. It looks like Baffert's got yet another good 2-year-old. My horse is in the turf sprint division. Everyone right now is talking about Lady Aurelia. She's taking the thoroughbred world by storm, not only by virtue of that just easy win at Keeneland to kick off her campaign, but of course the ship all the way across to England, the win at the prestigious Royal Ascot meeting. The fans are salivating. They can't wait for her to run in the Breeders' Cup turf sprint against the boys. She might have to face this horse, however. Q Pure Sensation's big effort in the Parks Dash. This horse has always been, when he's right, one of the top turf sprinters in the country. They tried the turf sprint last year. 6.5 furlongs at Santa Anita going down the hill is just a little bit too far. This 5 furlong distance is what he wants. You rarely see horses make mockery with giant length victories in shorter distance races. Pure Sensation was able to avoid a little bit of traffic trouble going on the turn, but he settled that race real quick and he earned a 110 Beyer speed figure. So Lady Aurelia fans, you might have to deal with Pure Sensation a little bit later this year in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Put him on your horse watch. We'll probably see him at Saratoga later this summer. Now let's get to some handicapping. Let's get to Songbird in the Delaware Handicap. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 1 $750,000 Delaware Handicap for fillies and mares. It's your DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day. Head on over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com. Download those free Formulator past performances and handicap along with us for expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend. Head on over to video.drf.com. Matt Bernier and I discuss all the horses, all the races in great depth, and magically, Matt appears to talk about the sensational Songbird. She's going to be 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 in the Delaware.
I think she can be 1 to 20. Now, you know, the interesting thing about horse racing, sometimes, obviously, you want to have good betting races. This is not one of them, in my opinion. I think this is a scenario where just enjoy the spectacle of Songbird. We're going to take a look at her 1.25 mile run in the Alabama. I can understand that maybe some people are concerned about the distance. Well, guess what? She allayed all those fears here up at Saratoga. She's controlling speed. and I think we're going to get something pretty darn close to what she did last year as a 3-year-old up at Saratoga.
Yeah, this 1.25 mile performance, there were a few folks that were worried about it. You never know until they try, and as you see, Songbird is straight and strong in the stretch, yet another notch on her belt. What a sensational 3-year-old campaign for Songbird, and in her final race at 3. Tough way to lose the undefeated streak, but she only lost it by a nose to a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Beholder. Now, some folks last year were worried about the 1.25 miles for Songbird. This year there were a few folks saying, well, maybe she won't come back the same horse off the layoff. Belmont Stakes undercard, Grade 1 Ogden Phipps. Let's cue up that replay. Songbird and Mike Smith on the outside. Paid Up Subscriber, who's a pretty nice horse in her own right, is down towards the rail, but you'll watch Mike Smith. He is just motionless. The other jockeys are pumping away. Mike knows what he has with this champion.
Yeah, she never takes a deep breath, and it's interesting that this is really her first start in about 6 months, so it wouldn't have faulted her at all for being a little bit short. And she never really has to work here. It's one of those things, it's a measured length and change in this spot. You would assume she's going to take a step forward out of this effort. Again, the distance is no concern. And then it also helps when the best horse is going to get the best trip. She's going to be out there all by herself on the front. I think she's going to put on a show.
And again, the Ogden Phipps was not a blowout win, but it was her first race since the Breeders' Cup, and I agree with Matt. I think she'll take a forward move. She's against just simply inferior horses. Jerry Hollendorfer, good record at Delaware. He took the Delaware Oaks last week with It 'Tis Well. Matt, as you said in the open, not a great betting race. Do you just single and move on from multiple race wagers? Do you even bother from a single race standpoint, even finding an exacta or trifecta?
You know what the toughest thing about a race like this is? Even with the multis, she is going to be keyed in everything, so just immediately they lose a little bit of value. And for me, that's kind of the problem with this race. I'm picking Songbird, but guess what? This is going to be a scenario where I don't have any bets involving her because I just don't think there's really that much added value in what is allegedly a free square.
It's a very nice card at Delaware. Matt's got a horse a little bit later on that he's going to discuss, one of his best plays of this weekend. For me, I agree completely. My top selection is Songbird. I am singling her in any kind of multiple race wagers, and I'm simply going to sit back other than that and enjoy this show. Big favorite, champion, and a very popular superstar in our game. Songbird, odds on and way the horse to beat in the Grade 1 Delaware Handicap. Nicole Russo is going to take a look at a stakes race at Belmont Park on Saturday, the Rockville Centre Stakes for 2-year-old New York breds. Let's go to Nicole and her pedigree pick.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky for Out of the Gate this week. Well, the Saratoga and Del Mar race meets are right around the corner. 2-year-old racing, of course, a major focus at both. Before that, however, you get one more chance to evaluate some of this year's freshman sires in the Rockville Centre Stakes for New York breds Saturday at Belmont. Let's take a look at the 6-horse field, and we have to start by discussing Overanalyze. Currently the leading freshman sire by both earnings and by individual winners with 6. He has 2 entries in this field. Overanalyzed by Dixie Union was a graded winning juvenile himself, and the big strapping horse trained on to win the Arkansas Derby at 3. He's from a stallion-making line, especially when it comes to 2-year-old success, and he's falling in line with his first runners so far. Overanalyze's 2 entries here are led by Analyze the Odds, who you're watching win his debut at Aqueduct for Todd Pletcher and Mike Rapoli, the same connections as his sire. He came back to finish 5th against Open Company in the Tremont at Belmont and is now dropping back down to look for that stakes win against his fellow New York breds. Now, while his immediate family is a little light, this colt traces back to the outstanding broodmare Best in Show. Among others, her descendants include those great broodmares Blush, Better Than Honor. Sure wouldn't be a surprise if Analyze the Odds turned out to be another stakes performer from that family. Overanalyze will also be represented in the Rockville Centre by the maiden Over Salty. Now, Pletcher has another runner in here representing another freshman sire. The young stallion Justin Phillip has really woken up lately. The Grade 1 winning sprinter now up to 3 individual winners. His entrant here, the impressive maiden winner What a Catch, also from a productive female family. He's a half to 4 winners, most of those from the same sire line as Justin Phillip. He's also a half to Catch the Moon. She's the dam of the multiple graded stakes winner Gervin, and importantly, the graded winning juvenile Cocked and Loaded. Would not surprise me at all if this one turned into another productive 2-year-old this summer. And lastly, let's take a look at another entrant in the Rockville Centre in Morning Breeze from the first crop of Morning Line. The Tis Now stallion actually just recorded his first stakes winner on the West Coast earlier this month when Surrender Now put away her challengers to win the Landalusi at Santa Anita. Morning Line won the Pennsylvania Derby around 2 turns, but he was also pretty quick. Had a lot of high-level wins at 7 furlongs, including the Grade 1 Carter Handicap. So Morning Breeze, let's see what this one develops into. We'll have more analysis of up-and-coming juveniles on Out of the Gate throughout the summer, as well as in our Spa Baby series, which launches next week before the Saratoga meet. But in the meantime, we'll be back for more on this week's Out of the Gate, looking at stakes races around the country after these messages.
Coming up this summer, it's Spa Babies presented by WinStar Farm. Every Wednesday through Sunday during the Saratoga meeting, Nicole Russo and I will analyze the best 2-year-old races at the spa. We'll go beyond the past performances and discuss pedigree, trainer patterns, workouts, and more. It's Spa Babies presented by WinStar Farm every Wednesday through Sunday at video.drf.com.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. 2 graded stakes races on a big evening of racing at Indiana Grand on Saturday. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 3 Indiana Derby at 1 1/16. For expanded stakes previews of all the weekend graded stakes races, head on over to video.drf.com. Matt, as you take a look at the morning line, the number 2 IRAP, 8-5. He's the deserving favorite based on his win in the Ohio Derby 3 weeks ago. A solid performance, and he's got that tactical speed.
Yeah, he does. I mean, there's a lot of things to like about him. There's also a lot of things to kind of nitpick about him. He's always going to be a little bit late with the lead change, and I just feel like he's IRAP. Should he ever be 7 or 8-5 in any race? I don't care. He is the horse to beat, but I would have a very difficult time putting a horse like that in first and just saying, you know what, I'm going to go on with him.
Especially at those odds. I agree with you 100%. Let's watch the Ohio Derby. IRAP is on the outside in 3rd. Gervin, the horse to beat in this race, ran really, really well, battling it out throughout. And as Matt mentions, look at IRAP. He is hanging on his left lead most of the way down to the wire. At a critical juncture late in the game, IRAP does change leads right there, and IRAP gets his nose down just at the wire. He has 2 wins in his career, both of them rich graded stakes, but you can argue in the Bluegrass he took advantage of a speed-friendly track in a paceless race, and last time out in the Ohio Derby he won it, but he won it by a lip.
Yeah, I mean, he's not spectacular. I don't think anybody's going to make that argument, but if you just look at it from a numbers standpoint, because visually you're not going to love what you see, numbers-wise, though, he is the horse to beat in this spot. I think you have to use him if you're playing any sort of multi-race wagers. I just want to take a shot against him individually.
I'm against, and I might even be against from any kind of multiple race wager. He's burned me many times in the past. I just don't trust him at a short price. So if not him, then who? You like a horse that in the Belmont Stakes, boy, it was not exactly what Dallas Stewart drew up.
Yeah, Hollywood Handsome has been a horse, and I'll acknowledge I liked him a few starts back in the Illinois Derby, and he was terrible that day, but he came back and he won an allowance race. But we're going to go back and look at his run in the Louisiana Derby, and he's on the far outside at this point, and he just kind of stays on. He doesn't do anything spectacular. You brought up the Belmont Stakes most recently. Draw a line right through that. Florent Drew lost the irons. He got jockeyed around early on, and it was an uncomfortable ride for Florent for the rest of the way. But you see Hollywood Handsome just plugging along on the outside. And I think the big thing to keep in mind, Dallas Stewart has thought that this horse might have a little bit of ability, and I think the big thing is you see the running style from him here. I think he's going to get some pace to run at here in this spot. I think he's going to come on at the end. Maybe a mile and 16th proves to be a little bit on the sharp side, but Hollywood Handsome at a decent number for me in this spot.
I think you said a mouthful about the pace. The Timeform U.S. pace projector for the race has that red bar, which indicates a fast pace, and it could really set things up for this one-run closer, Hollywood Handsome. You mentioned that a mile and a 16th might be sharp for Hollywood Handsome. For my top selection in this race, Untrapped, a mile and a 16th might still be a bridge too far, but at least it's not a mile and an eighth. And last time out in the Ohio Derby, boy, Untrapped did what he usually does. He loomed at the top of the stretch, and then he flattened out when he found the distance too far. Let's go back to the Rebel Stakes. At this distance, earlier this year, there he is. He's on the outside in the purple cap. It looks like he's going to go right on by, and he just finds the distance a bit far. You and I are salivating at the prospect of Untrapped later this summer or into the fall, turning back to a one-turn race, preferably at 7 furlongs or a one-turn mile. But in this spot, against this field, this horse, I think, has enough talent to work out his own trip. He can adapt to any kind of pace situation Untrapped. I'm more bullish on him than you. I've had a love affair with Untrapped, and all he's done is break my heart. But if he stays around his 6-to-1 morning line, I think that's a fair price.
I think class alone could push him through in a spot like this at a mile and 16th. I said to you, I think he is a bit of a, I hate to say poor man's version, but I think he's a slightly lesser version of Practical Joke. All along he's wanted to go short. I think one turn is ultimately what he's going to be, probably like you say, 7/8 kind of horse.
I'm hoping that your analogy is right, because I think a poor man's Practical Joke is good enough to win a good edition of the Indiana Derby. Let's head over to the West Coast for the Los Alamitos Derby. Let's take a look at the field for the feature race at Los Alamitos. It is the Grade 3 Los Alamitos Derby at a mile and an eighth for 3-year-olds. Bob Baffert's just been sensational all year long. He's got the favorite in here and the deserving favorite in the number 5, the Keeneland graduate, West Coast. 9-5 on the morning line off a sparkling win on the Belmont Stakes undercard in the Easy Goer.
Yeah, he really destroyed that field of 3-year-olds, and you know, we're going to take a look at it. It's worth noting he had a really good setup in here. There was a lot of pace signed on. He came from well off of it, and you're going to see right now at this point, Mike Smith, I don't think ever hits him at any point with the stick. It's just kind of hands and heels, very professional. You're going to see You're to Blame for Chad come rolling on here late, and you and I talked about it a little bit. I don't know if it was an optical illusion or what it was. I just kind of feel like Mike knew that this thing was over with West Coast, so he kind of let up on him.
We talk about this race in much greater depth in our expanded stakes free preview on video.drf.com. But one of the points I brought up that perhaps you could take a case against West Coast, while admitting that he is easily the horse to beat, is that this will be his first try at a mile and an eighth. And I'm not sure that maybe a mile and an eighth is what he wants, especially with this long stretch. From a figure standpoint, visually with what we just saw in the Easy Goer, again, he's way the horse to beat. But at a short price, that mile and an eighth question is nagging at me enough to take a stab against him.
And you know what, the other thing too, and you brought up the mile and an eighth, but you also brought up that stretch run at Los Alamitos. It goes on forever and a day, and just when you think you're almost there, you've got an extra 16th of a mile. So if you do have any sort of real concerns about how far he wants to go, all the reason to take a shot against it at a short price.
Matt, you're hoping that pace makes the race in this year's Los Alamitos Derby, because Sistron is very fast out of the gate, and he might be able to control this.
Yeah, this is a horse that I haven't loved for the majority of his career, but he's starting to, you know, warm up a little bit as far as I'm concerned. We're going to take a look at his most recent dirt race. This was in the Northern Spur down at Oaklawn. He's already out on the front end, and I assume this is where we're going to be positioned Saturday afternoon. Tyler Bays send him right out of the gate, go to the front. I don't think there's a ton of other early speed in here. B Squared figures to be close. Maybe Kim Bear down on the inside is going to go, but this horse, he's a nice horse. Again, he probably didn't get the credit from me anyway that he deserved. I'm starting to come around on him, though. He most recently ran the Penn Mile. It's nice to know that this race right here in the Northern Spur that we just looked at, that came on the heels of a turf effort. We're going to be going turf to dirt again here for John Sadler. I just think he's the kind of horse that could get out there. If anybody's going to wire the field, I think it's Sistron.
No, he's a good, solid horse, and he should be able to make the lead. I'm a little bit worried that B Squared and Kim Bear, especially Kim Bear stretching out in distance, might put a little bit of heat on him. And the same question question I have with West Coast, I have for this horse, the 1.125 miles. He's been doing most of his damage at a mile at shorter distances, but he's going to be in a prime position, you would think, as they swing into that long stretch at Los Alamitos. I'm going for a little bit of a stab in this race. A very lightly raced horse, trained by Jerry Hollendorfer, named Colonist. Let's go back to his race 2 starts back at Santa Anita. It was not the strongest field in the world. You see him on the outside right now. And while this is far from a sensational win, this is what Colonist is. He's sort of just a workmanlike horse and a grinding type. And I think that his grinding style is going to work at this 1.125 distance. He can adapt to the pace scenario. If the pace isn't fast, he can be a little bit closer. If the pace is quick, he can come from off of it. Last time out, Hollendorfer put him in a tough spot. He was the favorite, but he was also the only 3-year-old in a field full of salty older horses. And Colonist again tried to grind it out with a wide bid, and it didn't work out. I like the confident placing. Hollendorfer's putting him in this spot. I'm going to give Colonist, very lightly raced, unexposed, a chance to step up and perhaps bite West Coast in the Los Alamitos Derby. Let's go to JK. He's got his play of the day.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Pretty exciting opportunity. I don't know who did it, if it was Belmont or if it was Los Al, but it's always exciting to have the cross-country pick 4 opportunities. I remember growing up, the Magna 5 was a pick 5 that went from track to track in 1 hour, and it was a ton of fun. So regardless of the racing, we're going to participate in this cross-country pick 4 to hopefully encourage tracks across the United States to do things like this a little bit more often. It starts in Belmont, race 8. $150,000 stake, the Forbidden Apple race here. You got horses stretching out 7 and 6 furlongs. Disco Partner, who ran that huge race in the turf sprint about a month back, shows up here getting stretched out for the first time. Really interesting opportunity. I'm going to use 4 A horses here, the 1, the 6, the 7, and the 9. The first one is the 1, Get Jets. Anthony Dutrow stretching from 7 to a mile. The horse ran well last time in the allowance race. I expect him to do the same here. Offering plan, I think we've talked about this a few times, the common theme. You can leave Chad Brown in New York on the grass off of your tickets if you want, but I won't be doing the same. Mohayman, a horse that was always seemed to be a little bit of an underachiever on the dirt. I think we always expected a lot more from him, getting the turf for the first time. Not necessarily bred up and down for it, but a work a couple back on the turf. Looks like he can act on the turf a little bit here. A classy type, maybe this could wake him up. And Disco Partner, off of that performance last time with IRAD, Christophe Clement is a trainer that I have no problem having confidence in him stretching a horse out. As fast as that horse came home last time, would expect him to do well here. The interesting point here is the 10 Creasa and the 11 Cerise's Prize with the pace drawn to the outside. Usually in NYRA races, we make jokes all the time about the pace being kind of slow. I was thinking this one will kind of pick up a little bit with those 2 horses drawn to the outside, trying to get position early. So those are going to be my A horses. I'm going to use the A Bondurant for Ian Wilkes as a B horse. If you noticed, I'm fading Grand Arch. I feel like this is a prep race, getting him ready for Saratoga, so we'll wait for him next time. In race 9, I'm going to use the 2 and the 4 as A horses. The 2, Mr. Pete, in honor of the DRF Players Podcast co-host Pete Fornatel. Actually, I'm going to use that horse based off the trip last time. Missed the break by about 3 lengths, was wide all the way around there for a first-time starter. I expect him to run a lot better this time around. Collective Effort, the 4 horse, another short price there. And then I'm going to save a little bit with the 6, Bad Guy. Then we're going to go across country. We're going to hop on the plane. We're going to run out to Los Alamitos. Race 7 is the third leg of this cross-country pick 4. It's pretty simple here. I'm going to single West Coast. That performance Belmont Day was something that we all saw. Ran a huge number that day, and I expect him to do the same here back on his home turf. And then to close it out with a wonderful 20 claimer out of Los Al. Always be aware at Los Alamitos, the outside is where you want to be. I don't know what the reason is, but it's typically the place you want to be. The inside's not it's not a death sentence by any means, but outside horses should definitely get a little bit of an advantage here. I'm going to use the 5, 8, and 9 as A horses. Gato Dulce, obviously the 9-5 favorite. I'm not crazy about him, but I don't want him to knock me out of a ticket. The 8, Wandering Ways, drawn outside, has some pretty nice races, has a race actually at Los Al since Los Al's open July 8th. He's back in 7 days rest. And then the 5, Parched, who I thought ran really big this time, showed speed and faded pretty badly. But hopefully that trip could change here with some of the big hitters in this division, the Maiden 20 division, saving their condition for Del Mar next week. So good luck. We'll see you next week.
Peter Thomas Fornatal here. I'm the DRF tournament editor, as well as the co-host of the DRF Players podcast, here on Out of the Gate this week to talk about some of the exciting goings-on in the world of tournaments. The big news from the week is the partnership announced between the New York Racing Association and Daily Racing Form for DRF tournaments to be running qualifiers for the Battle of Saratoga. The Battle of Saratoga is one of those events that tournament players from around the country circle on their calendar each year. It's one of the big ones. For many years, it was a mythical money event. Last year, it switched to live bankroll, and they've actually broken it out to where instead of one two-day tournament, it's two one-day tournaments. Players put up $1,000 and compete for cash and fabulous prizes. But rather than put up the money to play yourself, you can now win your way in through the magic of DRF tournaments, which, of course, you can find at tournaments.drf.com. We've got a couple of different ways to win in. The first one I want to tell you about is contests that are happening this weekend on both Saturday and Sunday. You put up $290, and 1 in 10 players will win a grand prize worth $2,500. That's 2 seats to Saratoga to be allocated as you wish, and $500 in travel. We're also going to be running feeders. Now, these feeders, good stuff for the lower bankroll players to know about, because you can put up $12 and win your way into a qualifier that's going to be happening a little bit later, where 1 in 27 players will win packages. More seats will be available in that tournament. You can get all the details on tournaments.drf.com. Lots of ways to win into one of the most exciting tournament events of the summer. Saratoga joining the 2 other events we've been running qualifiers for this summer. The Win Challenge, lots of opportunities to win into that one on DRF tournaments, and also the Del Mar Handicapping Championship, which is rapidly approaching. Once again, DRF tournaments for all the details. And I also want folks not to forget, it's a few months away, but the World Championship of Handicapping, it's proven to be very popular so far. If you haven't heard about it yet, all you need to know really is this: $1 million, no takeout. This is a tournament. It's going to be limited to 200 players. You can buy in for $5,000 and compete in those finals for no takeout. But why do that when you can win your way in starting for as little as $95 in a round 1 qualifier? Actually, if you want, you can feed into that for around $10. Great chance to start off with a little and attempt to win a lot. That's one of the mantras on DRF tournaments, that along with these very player-friendly ratios of entries to prizes. For example, in those round 1 qualifiers, 1 in 7 players advances to the grade 1 qualifiers. You save yourself having to put up the $580 buy-in directly by working your way along the process on DRFT. We're all about player-friendly ratios and great opportunities, and working with exciting partners like the Win, like Del Mar, and like Saratoga. I encourage everybody to get involved. If you're interested in more information about tournaments, you can hit me up on Twitter at Looms Boldly. Also, very happy to answer questions there. And via the podcast, you can send it to podcast and have your tournament questions or general racing questions answered by me and my co-host, Jonathan Kitchen. We always love to hear from the listeners, and it's always a pleasure to get a chance to come on here to Out of the Gate and share my thoughts about all the stuff going on in the tournament world. I'm going to send you back to the studio, and I'll see you soon.
Time for the best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Matt, where are you going?
Delaware Park, race number 8, right before the big show with Songbird. Let's talk about the grade 3 Kent 3-year-olds. They're on the turf going 1 mile and an eighth. The number 2 is a horse called Lunaire for Tom Albertrani. Mike Smith going to try to pull off a little bit of a double with the graded stakes race. We're going to take a look at Lunaire's race. 2 starts back down at Gulfstream Park. Right now he's in 3rd. He's in between horses a little bit. He's going to go down to the inside. And okay, the finish in this race isn't going to be anything outrageous. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but on the far turn he had to wait a little bit. He was moving up nicely and just had to wait briefly. The Belmont race, 1 start back. You can go into Formulator and pull that replay up. That's the one that really caught my eye. If you believe the incremental fractions, he got his final quarter of a mile in 21 and 1. 21 and 1, not 22 and 1, 21-1. He had no pace to run at. He was wider than wide, made this big move. I think he's going to get some pace to run at in here. And I just kind of look at it and say, Frostmorn, you deserve your favoritism. I'm going to take a shot against with Lunaire.
And that last race was liver than live at Belmont. The first two finishers, both of them came back to win. The winner of that Belmont race, Chad Brownhorse, that's 3 for 3 in his career and a Next Out Stakes winner. I'm going to Indiana Grand for one of the undercard races on the Indiana Derby Saturday evening meeting. I like the number 8 Improv in race number 8. And I have to admit, I've been waiting for Improv for a while. Rusty Arnold's entered her in some races, in some tougher races than the one she's going to be in on Saturday. And I think he very wisely scratched out. This looks like a spot for Improv. We're going to go all the way back to her maiden win at Gulfstream last year, but it kind of shows you her running style. She likes to be free on the lead. This race at Gulfstream, she is able to settle it very quickly after going relatively quickly on the front end. In her most recent start at Churchill Downs, the Grade 3 Matron Stakes, she did all the dirty work. She was dueling on the lead. That pace was fast. Our friends at Timeform US color-coded that race red in their past performances, indicating a hot pace. Not only did she put away her pace foe, but she was hanging on all the way down to the wire. It was a rock-solid effort for Improv. And one of the also-rans in that race, Curlin's Approval, came back to win the graded Princess Rooney at Gulfstream Park with a 104 Beyer speed figure. Big world, I respect her, but I want Improv to be aggressively ridden at Indiana Grand, get to the front, and hope to take that field wire to window. Thanks so much for watching this week. Lots of great racing. Of course, the highlight is Songbird in the Grade 1 Delaware Handicap. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.